Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Heidi from My Reading Life, and I'm here today to film a basically recent reads and currently reading video. I'm sitting in my car because I'm currently at our family's camp on a lake and the wind is blowing, so I didn't want to sit outside and try to film this and have the wind sort of muffle the sound. I've been doing a lot of reading, but I've been super busy with work, and this is graduation season, of course, and we've had a lot of kids in our families either graduating from high school or elementary school or college even, so we've been busy on the weekends with graduations and graduation parties, and then during the week this is my busy time at work because this is field season and we're currently getting projects out in the field that we'll be doing research on throughout the summer. So that keeps me pretty busy during the week, so I haven't had a lot of time for filming, but I have been doing a lot of reading, and especially a lot of audiobook reading because I travel quite a bit for my job in between locations where I'm doing work, and I very much enjoy listening to audiobooks while I drive. So let's just get to it, shall we? I've got my books here beside me. And the first one I wanted to talk about was this one, River of Doubt by Candice Millard. I did a buddy read of this book with Doris from Audiobooks, and this is an excellent narrative nonfiction account of the time when Theodore Roosevelt traveled to South America and traveled down a tributary of the Amazon River that had never been explored. This all took place after his failed bid for the presidential election for the third term, and he was sort of in his mid-50s at loose ends, and evidently Theodore Roosevelt was always the kind of person that when he had faced adversity or loss of any kind, he preferred to get out into nature and to do things that would be very physically demanding. So he decided to explore this particular region of the Amazon that had not been explored to this point. So with his son Kermit and a cast of other characters, they take off and spend several months traversing this very, very wild section of jungle and river. And in the course of all this, several people lose their lives. Theodore Roosevelt himself almost loses his life, and it was fascinating. And Candice Millard is an excellent writer of nonfiction. She leaves the chapters with cliffhangers, as Doris mentioned when she talked about this book on her channels. It's so great to read nonfiction where it's like a fiction book where at the end of every chapter there's a cliffhanger and you're like, I've got to know what happens, and so you keep reading. So you sort of know that Teddy Roosevelt doesn't die in the Amazon, right? We know how he dies, but there's several places where that's in doubt. So excellent book. I'm certainly going to be reading more by this author. I'm so glad that Doris suggested that we check this one out together, and had a lot of fun doing this as a buddy read with her. Another book that I recently completed was for the reading I've been doing for the Women's Prize for Fiction. Now, the Women's Prize winner was announced this past week, and it was Home Fire by Camilla Shamsi, which I was super excited about because I really did love that book. It was one of my favorites from the Women's Prize reading that I did this spring. And then before that announcement came, I had read this book, When I Hit You by Meena, Kandasamy. And I think that this book would have been my top pick for the prize, to win the prize. And it was on the short list, and I just think that this is an incredibly powerful piece of fiction. It's written in a style where a woman is describing her life, where she meets a very charismatic older man. He is a college professor. They get married rather quickly. He moves her with him to where he is teaching at a college, away from her family and her friends, and slowly but surely begins to isolate her from the community, from her family, from her friends, from her job as a writer, and to the point where she's basically a prisoner in her own home. He is abusive, so all the caveats. This book's very disturbing to read about. There's a lot of physical abuse, there's sexual abuse, and it's written in such a way that she's remembering it and telling it to you, and in the meantime she's sort of like processing it as she writes it, and it's incredibly powerful. It's not written in a straightforward narrative. So if you have trouble with books that don't sort of have a beginning, middle, and end kind of thing, you might struggle with this a little bit. But it's more written like she's writing in her journal. She's writing about her feelings. She's trying to process what's happened to her. And I just found it incredibly powerful. A really amazing account of how a woman can find herself in a situation like this, and how difficult it is to get yourself out of it, even if you're a strong person, an educated person, you know, a person that people might assume would never find themselves in an abusive relationship. Really interesting. Highly recommend this book. If you're going to pick up a book from the Women's Prize list this year, I think this is a really good one to try. Really glad I read this. And for other people's, I would recommend that you check out some other reviews of this book. Specifically, I think Jennifer from Insert Literary Pun here had a really awesome review of this book, so I will link that down below. So another book I recently completed was called Foreign Soil, a short story collection by Maxine, Beneba, Clarke. I picked this book up because it is part of the book club being sponsored by Russell over at Ink and Paper Blog, his Read Around the World in 1,000 Pages book group, and this was our pick for Australia. Clarke is an Australian author, and these short stories take place all over the world. Like, each short story is from a different country, all over the place, and each story deals with different social issues, whether it might be gender issues, it might be immigration, it might be racial issues, police brutality, such as that. So there's lots of different social issues being touched upon in these stories from lots of different places all over the world. I love this collection. I often have a hard time with short story collections. I often struggle because stories are uneven. I like some and I don't like others. I liked every story in this collection. Some I liked more than others, but I liked them all. There weren't any that I didn't like, and I found them all to be very strong and very powerful. I loved the way this collection ended, the last story, because this collection deals with a lot of really serious issues, and at times they're dark. They're not hopeful. You know, there's not a lack of hope, but there is there's terrible things happening in the world, and you know, you can't just look away from them all the time. But the last story really ends on a hopeful and wonderful note, and it just left me with a big smile on my face when I completed this collection. So I absolutely would recommend this for anybody looking for a short story collection to try. I think this is an excellent one. And on the back here it says that this collection would be comparable to Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, Marlon James, and Helen Oyeyemi. So, and I've only read Adichie out of those three authors that they compared this collection to, but I would definitely have to agree that I could see the comparison between this collection and Adichie's writing. Now, I mentioned that I've been doing a lot of audiobook listening, and so I've been working my way through the Robin Hobb Realm of the Elderling series. I'm currently on the last trilogy. I just completed the first book of the last trilogy, and I haven't done any really discussion of any of these books that I've been working my way through since, you know, last winter, and I think that I will just wait until I've completed the whole lot of them, and then I'll sort of do one video about the whole Realm of the Elderling series. But I will just say, if you like epic fantasy, if you want to read characters that, you know, a lot of female perspective, a lot of diversity, and just really fun, the Robin Hobb series is excellent, and I'm loving it on audio. I also finished on audio recently a YA book called Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, and this is a very short audiobook. I think it's only like 2.5 hours long, and it is I believe it's a prose poetry or a YA in verse novel that is about a young boy whose brother is shot and killed in the street in their neighborhood as he's coming home from a convenience store, and they live in a neighborhood where there is gang violence. And the younger brother sets out to avenge his older brother, has a gun on his person, and gets in the elevator. And then the whole rest of the story takes place in the course of one elevator ride as he encounters some folks in the elevator. So it was really thought-provoking and powerful, and the audiobook I would highly recommend because it's read by the author, and I think things like that which are read by the author always, you always can get a lot out of it if you read it, if you listen to it from the author's own perspective. And then for what I'm currently reading, actually, I just completed last night, I completed a book of comic essays, I guess I would call it. It's called Vacationland by Joshua Hodges, and it is a collection of funny essays about Massachusetts and Maine. This guy is a comedian. I guess he's been on The Daily Show and some other television. He's done some television writing and some comedy on television. And I picked it up because I had heard, I think from Liberty Hardy, that they were funny, and especially if you're from Maine, that it was a great collection. So I grabbed it from my library and read it on ebook, and it was extremely funny, and especially as a person from Maine and from New England, I really got a lot of the humor, and I got a kick out of it. I read a lot of it out loud to my family last night, and I'm sure it irritated them to no end, but that's a great one if you're looking for a funny essay collection. And then I am currently reading Terra Nullius by Claire G. Coleman. This is a book that I had planned to read for the Reading Women Read Along month, which is happening now in June. This is an Australian book, and I picked it up because it was my understanding that this is a dystopia, and now that I'm reading it, I'm about 88 pages into it. I don't know if it's so much a dystopia as it is historical fantasy or alternative history, or this book is definitely based on reality, not current reality, but like historical colonialization, how European settlers treated Aboriginals. So I think that's what this is based on. I mean, I don't know very much about Australian history, but that's how I'm seeing this, as sort of a historical fantasy. It very much could have happened, could be taking place in the United States if you had a bit different description of the wilderness and called people Native Americans rather than Aboriginals, but in the book there's the settlers, which are the colonizing faction, and then there's the natives, which are the people that were already occupying this land when the settlers showed up. And the settlers are trying to subjugate the natives and educate them and, bring them, basically educate them and try to bring them from their savage ways into the civilized ways. So enjoying this so far. I'm finding it a very quick read. There's a lot of action, and I'm enjoying it. So that's what I'm currently reading, and that's what I've recently read. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're finding some great books to read. I hope you are having wonderful summer weather wherever you are. We're finally starting to get some nice summer weather here, and it's very enjoyable. And so yeah, that's it, and I will talk to you later.